It's not perfect by any stretch
Good.
of the
I'm glad you said
imagination. I really want to be clear on this.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Joe Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello. My name is Ellie Dodds and I'm co-presenter, and today Joe's interviewing Chetna Bhatt. Chetna spoke at an event that Joe was chairing earlier in the year, and Joe loved Chetna's story so much that she asked her to come on the show. Chetna is an executive coach, part-time in-house employment lawyer and speaker. As CEO and co-founder of Being Lawyers, she trains and coaches lawyers and other professionals in a new understanding of the workings of the mind, so that they can increase their mental clarity and perform at the high standards expected of them without compromising their well-being. Having herself recovered from a chronic illness with the insight she gained from this understanding, Chetna is committed to transforming the well-being of others. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Chetna Bhatt of Being Lawyers. Hi Chetna, thanks for joining me.
Hello, Joe. Thanks for having me.
So this is our second meeting, if you like, not that we're seeing each other face to face, because you spoke at a conference that I chaired a few months ago, didn't you? So that was how we originally met.
Yeah, it was great. Good fun.
Yeah, it was one all around well-being, so fits very nicely with the theme of today. So tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
So yeah, thank you. I kind of wear two hats. So I spend half of my week as a part-time employment lawyer, and then I spend the other half of my week working as an owner of a business, Being Lawyers. And essentially what we do is run workshops and seminars and one-to-one coaching sessions for lawyers and other professionals, going inside organizations, but also working with people individually. And my background kind of leading to that was that about sort of 6 years ago now, maybe 6.5 years ago, I fell ill with a chronic illness, working full time as a lawyer, and just that led to burnout. And I had a period of essentially sort of self-inquiry, and it led me to go on a coach training course, which in turn is kind of where I am today. So I'm qualified as a coach, but I'm also part-time lawyering, because what I have gone on to learn in my life as a coach has enabled me to go back into a career that actually at the time I thought I wasn't even able to do anymore, because I had it down as the cause of my stress and totally unable to manage that kind of fast-paced environment. So in terms of my coach training, I kind of started off with all of the tools and techniques that help people with their well-being. And then I noticed I had quite a few things that I was using and drawing upon to help my well-being, for me to actually get better. And it kind of took me to the point of being about 80% well, doing things like meditation every day, doing yoga, EFT, acupuncture, and so on. But then eventually I came across a new understanding of the mind, and what that really gave me was a number of things, actually. I mean, first of all, it was the game changer that led to my full recovery, my healing. Secondly, as I say, it enabled me to go back into a career that I thought that I wasn't able to do anymore, but actually I enjoyed. And thirdly, now it's enabled me to work in my business in a completely different way, and hopefully will go on to, for me to be able to share with you what that looks like.
So the sort of chronology was that you were very ill. You started your recovery and got sort of almost better, but there was that something missing. And then when that came along, you went back to do what you were originally doing with a new, as you said, understanding. So it's interesting that you had that bit in the middle where you were so much better, but not sort of 100%. But then things moved on. So how did that come about? Tell us a bit more about what that is and how it came about as well, because a lot of people would have been happy with 80%, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I thought that was as good as it was going to get, because I was in that state for a few years. But I was doing so many things to help myself. But in that period of time, I was drawing on what a lot of the self-help industry talk about. So, it was all about getting my head right. There were lots of visualization exercises, lots of positive affirmations and things like that I was then going into business and teaching tools and techniques on how to perform more effectively. I mean, during this period, I was working with top leaders in the world in terms of on human potential. So I was learning so much and enthusiastically sharing it all. But as I say, there was just a piece missing for me that was necessary for my full recovery to take place.
Mm-hmm. So tell us more about it and lead into sort of why you do what you do, because you're now doing the both.
I am, yeah. And it's really cool because I didn't even think that was even possible for me once upon a time, at least not in the way that I'm doing it now. So what I will say is, do you want me to share a bit about the understanding that I'm pointing to?
You've got us all intrigued now.
I mean, it just started to make sense of so many things. So where our feelings come from, why is it that one day I'm just unable to do anything and I'm pretty useless at trying to do anything well, and on another day or even in another moment I'm just working in that effortless flow. And it had me understand that. It had me understand how well-being really works. And fundamentally, what it gave me was an access to what I call my inner GPS. So I now have an understanding that every single one of us has access to inner wisdom that we can use to basically navigate us through life. And I remember when I first heard that thinking, oh, that just sounds a bit woo-woo. Yeah, whatever. And it just didn't really stick with me. It just didn't really resonate with me. And I guess what I did was I just got curious with it. If there really is an easier way of living life, what is that? And it absolutely is a much more simple way of living life, because what I now see is that basically we are part of a bigger intelligence. There's an intelligence behind life. There's something that has the sun come up and the sun go down. There's something that has an acorn turn into an oak tree. There's something that I don't have any words to explain, but we're a part of that. This nature, we're a part of that. And the more and more I've looked in that direction to actually see that, wait a minute, I'm actually already okay. I have this built-in design for success. So if I want to operate in my A game in business, then I already have something available to me that I can call on as guidance that helps me know and navigate whatever I might be dealing with moment to moment. And so that's really what has been so key for me in how I've completely operated differently in terms of productivity and so on.
And how did you come across that? And what was the sort of how did that develop?
Yeah, so I was already a coach for something like 3 years at the point that I came across it, and I basically met a fellow coach. And she went on to become my mentor. And there was just kind of something about her that she had this way of being that was just really peaceful. And that might sound a bit cheesy, but I remember just being really curious about why is it that she just seems to be quite chilled out a lot and just seems to navigate whatever's going on in a really effortless way. And I ended up working with her, and I guess what I went on to learn was just an understanding as to this invisible variable called my state of mind that's running the show. So it had me kind of see what was going on when I was getting really caught up in my mind, totally stressed out about something. Suddenly what it gave me was this understanding as to, okay, Chetna, you're totally stressed out right now, but actually you know the mechanics as to what's going on. You know the internal creation that has you experience this. And so anyway, the more and more conversations I had with her, the more sessions I had with her, the more helpful it was for me to kind of implement in a really practical way into my day-to-day life. And so here I am years later in a position where, to be honest, I'm still learning, and I think I will be forever. But I definitely see it as a new way of being able to operate at my most productive on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. So expand on that into sort of why you do what you do, because as you say, the sort of culmination of that was going back to being a part-time lawyer as well as continuing with your coaching, which you've sort of partly explained because you said you didn't think you'd ever be able to do it again, which gave me the idea that you were sad about that. Lots of people learn a new thing to do and start a business and don't ever go back to what they were doing originally. So it's unusual, I think. So tell us more about why you do what you do and why you balance these two things.
So I work, as you know, on a part-time basis as a lawyer, and I'm surrounded by some really sharp intellectual minds, and the challenges that role gives me are really exciting. You know, I love how I'm in problem solving mode. I'm being called upon for my intellectual ability. There's so many things that role lends that really give me that I really enjoy. But what happened when I fell ill was I just thought that I'm not able to operate at the pace that I'm required to work at, the high standards that are required of me. I just didn't think that I had the resilience in me. I didn't think that I would be able to do it. I wasn't cut out for it, if you like. And so there I was, as I say, doing my coaching. But I was recognizing that also in my lawyer life as a leader, I was missing, certain elements. I was missing the managing element. I was missing that intellectual rigor. I was just missing certain elements. And I just thought in a matter of time, it would be okay. And I'd just get just as passionate about my coaching because that gave something else to me. I really enjoy aspects of that too. More than anything, though, what really shifted was when I came across this understanding, which, by the way, is called the 3 principles. It had me see how everything started to look different. I was able to draw on my innate well-being, but I was able to be more present, engaged, creative. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I've made up this story that I'm not able to be a lawyer anymore. But now that I see what I see, and now that I understand kind of, if you like, the human operating system better, I wonder what it would look like if I were to try and do both, because as I say, they both offer things that I really enjoy. But I couldn't not continue with my coaching because the understanding that I have has been just such a game changer for me that it was really important to me to make sure that I was helping other people. So that's what led me anyway to try both, doing both. And here I am sort of 9 months later, doing both. And it's been a totally different experience to what lawyer life used to be like. Yeah. And that's been really cool for me to see. It feels like I'm now walking the talk and I'm able to say to my clients, no, I'm doing it too. So that's really nice.
Yeah. So talk about how you prioritize what you do in your work and your life, bearing in mind you've got 2 different types of work and obviously you have a life to fit in as well, presumably. How do you prioritize those
Yeah, so I might give you a bigger answer than your question merits, so forgive me if I
That's
do.
fine. We like big answers.
But one of the things that shifted for me is understand this whole concept really of work-life balance. It was something that I was forever seeking to achieve, that perfect elusive balance and harmony between the two things. And what I came to see was how unhelpful that is as a concept, and how it's actually just like for me now, I see it as in like the two things being inseparable and almost impossible to compartmentalize in such a beautiful way, because there's times in my life when I'm being pulled in the direction of work, there's times in my life when I'm being pulled in the direction of something personal, and now I'm just okay with the ebb and flow of life and knowing that I'm never going to reach this beautiful balance between the two things, because it doesn't exist, has been really quite nice for me to see and settling in and of itself. And so when I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
I heard, I still can't remember who it was that said it, but somebody used the analogy of the fact that when you drive a car, you change gear. You don't just go along in balance. And they use the analogy of the gear change, so that sometimes you need to be, in this gear and sometimes in that, which was a bit like the whole thing, as you say, about life, that sometimes you need to be in work, sometimes you need to be in life, and they're not equal or balanced. It's just how it is. So it's a similar thing, I think, to what you're saying.
Yeah, I really like that, and it does sound similar. Yeah, I feel like what that has done, though, not trying to kind of have this constant tension between the two things, is really helpful, because I don't have constant thinking and worrying about that. Do you know what I mean? So when I'm balancing, if you like, these two roles, I never feel like like I'm having a level of suffering in just needing to, for example, do something lawyer related on a coaching day or do something coaching related on a lawyer day. It just feels like I'm just going with whatever I need to do that's obvious to me in that moment. And I'm always conscious of what's important and what's not, and what can wait.
Yes. Yeah. So when I, asked the question about prioritizing, that is what it is, isn't it? And it's interesting that is truly what it is. It doesn't matter which part of your life or work or business or career or whatever it is. It's about what's important in that moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what I was saying about this invisible variable called our state of mind, it's true to say that when I have less on my mind and I have clarity of mind, I just feel like I'm able to do things without even thinking about them. And it's just obvious to me what needs my attention moment to moment. But get me in a busy state of mind where I can't see things clearly and I'm pretty useless, and I might make wrong choices from that perspective.
Yes, yeah. So talk about how you get things done, when you know what you're supposed to be working on at that time, how you then sort of divide that up into actual tasks.
Yeah,
how do you manage your tasks?
So I've already alluded to what I now see as the sort of predominant creative force in all of our lives, actually. The fact that every single one of us has this inner GPS that we can call upon for guidance has just been huge for me, because now I'm able to kind of call upon that to operate in my flow. And it gets me way further than my intellectual mind is able to take me. So what I mean by that, just to make it more real for you, is, say, for example, I think, okay, I would love X to become my client. That's going to be my goal right now. What I then might do is put in place tasks for that to happen. But then what I notice is something's happening really in an unfolding in a really beautiful way, but that's with a client Y. And so, but that's happening in an effortless way, whereas with X, it's really effortful and it's not happening as easily. And so what I'm trying to point to is that my mentor makes this really beautiful distinction between life unfolding in an effortless way and then us trying to create in an effortful way. Yeah. And what I really now use to work on from moment to moment, what requires my energy and my focus, is always coming with this inner inclination. I now need to email X. I now need to pick up the phone to Y. I now need to go over and visit whoever, and it sometimes doesn't even make logical, intellectual sense for me as to why I'm doing that. But then later on down the line, it all becomes perfectly clear why things happened the way they happened.
So how do you put yourself in the position for those things to happen? So somebody listening who is just hearing about this for the first time could sort of be imagining that you sit there in a sort of in the zone waiting for a task to pop into your head.
Yeah.
But we have to get stuff done, and we know we have certain things that we have to get done. How does it work?
So there's a technical answer to this as well. Like, I do have most of my business on Google Drive. I manage my meetings on a Mac calendar. I do use paper to-do lists. There's absolutely certain things that I tend to use to help me. But even that, I'm always experimenting with new things, and I see what sticks and what doesn't stick, and what feels good and what doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But what I'm really pointing to is the fact that, like, I might have an idea to do something, and then I show up to do that without any thinking around it, and I'm in action to do it. And then what I notice is that the level of effort that I'm putting into it, when I'm listening to that kind of, it just speaks to me to do this kind of thing, generally the outcome and the reward and the output that I'm getting is bigger than I had even anticipated. And so, and when I look back on anything that has actually ever gone well, it really is as simple as, I had an idea, I kind of just showed up to make it happen, and I didn't really have much thinking around it, and then I just did it. And then that might sound like, are you crazy? But it's just the pattern that keeps happening, and it's the pattern that I now use and almost rely upon to bring about anything that I want to create in the world.
So do you have any techniques or tips around how you sort of set yourself up to be able to just let this stuff happen, as opposed to doing, which is what we all tend to do? We tend to, as you alluded to, overthink stuff, frenetically do stuff. How do we stop ourselves doing that?
Yeah, and it is really an undoing rather than a doing. And so I, for example, when I get really caught up in my mind because I've just got something on my mind that's just going on and on and on at me, and I'm caught up with it, when that happens, I recognize that in order to go into that quiet mind state where I'm going to be able to access that flow, it is really a question of allowing my mind to settle. So that might sound like, but what do you mean? Well, I might not analyze it. I might just quit overthinking it. I might just stop overanalyzing it. I might just, when I see it for what it is, which is my thought storm, immediately I'm actually giving space for me to just get back into my flow. Sometimes I might go for a walk just to allow my mind to settle. Sometimes when I actually give up thinking about something, so if I've got a problem on my mind and I'm really thinking hard about it, and I'm almost kind of just going around in circles with it, then I know that I'm never going to find the answer that way, because I just don't have access to that clarity of mind. So when that happens, I know, right, give up thinking about it, just go and do something completely different.
Yeah.
And that's why people often say, it was in the shower that I had that idea, it just came to me from nowhere, or it was when I was washing up, or it was when I was out for a walk, walking the dog, or whatever.
It's interesting. About a year ago, I realised that what I was badging as procrastination around some big stuff was actually, or what did I come up with? I decided it was called, I can't even think how I repositioned it to myself. But I realised that I was not doing things for a period of time, thinking that I was procrastinating, but actually by the time I did whatever it was in the end, it was completely different to how it was going to be. And there were lots of reasons why that was. And I realised that actually I was just inadvertently, I guess, doing some of this stuff. I was just letting it sort of percolate and happen in the right way. But I thought it was me procrastinating, but actually it was me not being ready to take that action because it was the wrong action. And in the end, I took the right action, but it took a little while of not doing anything until the right stuff came along.
Yeah, I really love that because that's how it looks to me too. Sometimes I don't even know where to start, I might have an idea, but I don't know where to start with it. And if I don't know, then that's okay. Like, I'm cool with that. I'm just trusting that at some point, it's just going to feel obvious to me what I need to do to move this forward. And that's always what happens at the right time.
It's interesting you said as well, the idea in the shower thing. I drive when I need to think things through, or I find that not intentionally driving somewhere to think something through. It's I have done so because that's where I tend to do it. And I think, as you say, a walk's probably another good thing. Interesting, lovely. So what about taking us away from all this mind stuff? Although I bet there'll be a mind thing in here. The next question is about tools and apps and what you use. So you're going to recommend one that's about the mind?
No, actually there isn't a tool on this. I kind of just I play with things all the time. So one of the things that I really like is LastPass, just because I don't need to worry about remembering all of my passwords. It works brilliantly for me. I mentioned earlier that I have everything on Google Drive, and I just think it's brilliant how it works. I love that I can share it with my people that I'm collaborating with as necessary. I'm always having ideas come to me when I'm, as I say, out walking or whatever. And so because I've got my phone but not necessarily paper with me, I often also use audio memos to just speak into that, and then I can record that and listen to it later. Or I will use OneNote to record ideas as they come to me, and then I can capture them later. I tried using Todoist recently, and I think that I'm just going to probably default back to the old-fashioned paper route, because it felt like just another thing that was getting in the way of me just doing what I need to do.
Interesting. Tell me more about that, because I use Todoist and have done for a long time, and it's the first thing that's kept my attention for years, as opposed to I normally go find a new to-do list management system of some description, paper or otherwise, and then spend ages transferring everything across, which keeps me procrastinating quite nicely. But it's one I've stuck with.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a notebook which is specifically for my lists. And so it's organized to some extent in that I'm not having pieces of paper all over the place. But I guess I'm just in the routine of doing that. And so I haven't really given Todoist long enough to perhaps give it a chance. But it just naturally feels good for me to just write. And I like to disconnect from technology as much as possible. So I think that's probably why, but I'm not completely done with it. So maybe I'll give it a bit longer.
My top tip is filters. Create tons of filters. I was laughing at myself the other day that I created another 4 filters only the other day, which was so I have a laptop, an iPad and an iPhone, and I can do I've got very clear about what I can do on what, if you see what I mean. So I use those as tags. But then I also have tags for periods of time, so 1 minute, 15 minute, 30 minute and 60 minute. And I the other day decided that quite often I sit there with my iPad and I've got a load of stuff on my list of things to do on an iPad, but that in itself is overwhelming. So this is for you who's doing the let it all just happen around you, but you're probably thinking, oh my god, this sounds far too complicated. But I set up filters so that I can see things that are going to take me a minute on the iPad, things that are going to take me 5 minutes on an iPad, things that are going to take me 30 minutes on. So that now I can actually go through and knock off all the 5-minute things so they're done, and I've ticked off a load of stuff.
Oh, great.
Or if I'm feeling really in the flow and I'm really up for doing something chunky, I can go to the 60-minute, which is, the sort of deep work stuff, and work on that. So, but maybe I'm just a bit terrible about my filters.
It's great though when we find something that works for us, isn't it?
Exactly. And it is all about what works for you individually, for sure.
Yeah.
So moving away from individually, what about people helping you get stuff done in terms of sharing? So whether that be in your law side of things or coaching or at home, who helps you to get stuff done? Do you outsource? Do you delegate?
Well, there's a definite difference between lawyer life and business life in this answer, because in lawyer life, I have all of the systems there for support, and it's wonderful because I have assistants that I can delegate any administrative tasks to, and indeed colleagues that I can turn to on my non-lawyer days. So there's all of that support in place in that aspect. And then in my own business, there's definitely, I would say, some room for growth here, because at the moment I collaborate with people, and so that's always a real pleasure because we can work jointly and kind of divvy things up between us. And then sometimes, of course, there's other stakeholders involved in projects that I'm involved in, but by and large, I'm doing things by myself. And so yeah, one day at a time, but eventually I'm hoping that I can get a VA in place and grow my team, and yeah, it will go in that direction.
And what do you think will be the sort of tipping point for that? Because I think we often think we can't afford to do those things, or that we haven't got enough work for it yet, or that we can't tell people how to do it yet because it's all very individual. And sometimes that's actually, again, going back to your sort of vernacular, that would just be about thoughts that aren't true, but we don't challenge ourselves on that.
It's absolutely the case, and it isn't like I'm telling myself anything that's unhelpful on that aspect. I think that I've just wanted to honor the fact that I'm, doing something relatively fresh. I've been trying out these two roles for only, as I say, 9 months at the moment. But absolutely, when it occurs to me to do so, that's the next step. And I do see it as being only a matter of time. So
yeah,
it's not some distant future thing.
No. Cool. So what about self-care then? So that's something that became very important to you.
Yeah, sure.
Not planned particularly at the time, but it's something that I know really focus on now. So tell us about how you look after yourself, how you keep yourself healthy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember very early on actually creating some non-negotiables when it came to looking after myself. So things like being really precious about 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, and for me exercise is so important to me. I really love it, and I need to do at least 3 or 4 sessions of something each week in order to just kind of be operating at my A game, if you like. And things like just drinking lots of water and having me time are kind of what I would describe as my non-negotiables. So once I've got those in place, everything else becomes just nice to have, like desirable. But I'm less precious about that. So there's a number of things that I will do when it comes, like at the moment I'm trying out this new diet where I'm making sure that I have enough of a few things, but I'm also trying these HIIT exercises with them, and that's something new that I'm playing with. But ultimately, I feel like, going back to what I was talking about earlier, it just occurs to me in a really obvious and natural way what I need to do to help myself in a particular moment. So it might be, okay, now just go and get some water. Okay, now just go and have a break. Okay, now just take a walk. Why don't you go to the gym now? Things occur to me in a really natural way. And initially, when I started playing with this, I was really nervous about the fact that I wouldn't get done what I needed to get done. But what I have seen is that I haven't got any extra thinking around it, and I'm actually doing more than I was doing before in order to look after myself. So everything's in place just as I want it to be, without me actually stressing about that, which has been really nice.
And is that because you're sort of connected to the benefit of it too? Because I think about me going for a walk. I enjoy a walk when I go. I know it's good for my health, and I try to do it every day. But sometimes I have to create errands for me to do to force me to leave the house in order to do the walk. So tell me, what's the magic here for me to do it naturally because that's what I ought to be doing or I want to do or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's made a bit of a difference on that front, at least, is having a Fitbit. So I really like to make sure that I've done my 10,000 steps at least a day. And if it gets to the evening and I'm nowhere near or whatever, I feel like it's just really obvious for me to go out, and I feel motivated to do that without even questioning it. Yeah, I don't know. That's something that's certainly been helpful for me. But more than that, it just feels good once I've been out and about. So I don't normally have that kind of reticence about doing that.
No, that hasn't helped.
But I'm also really good at listening to my body. So if I need to rest, I'll rest. And there's just no way that anything's going to talk me out of that. So maybe you just need to rest.
Oh yeah, that I can do. Oh yeah. Don't give me any more excuses. Oh, brilliant. So talk about rest. What do you do to relax?
So that's something I don't find any difficulty with at all. There's just so many things I love doing. My spending time with my family and friends is just so important to me. So at every opportunity, I'll hang out with them, whether that's just in at home or whether that's out and about. I love spending time with them, but by myself, I also just love reading. I love listening to podcasts. I love watching videos, learning. I love going to the museum, the gallery. I love going to see new exhibitions, learning Spanish. So there's all sorts of things I just love doing. And it's just really important to me to always be kind of nurturing those loves.
So it's sounding all rather perfect. Do you have moments where there are things that you love to do that you don't feel you've done enough of, or you wish you'd done more of, or that you don't feel you've got the time to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I really want to be clear on this. I have my moments all the time, and I think, why haven't you done this? You said you would do this or whatever. But what's really interesting is that I suppose what I'm trying to say is that I'm just more peaceful about things in a way that I didn't used to be. So whereas I would be berating myself for days about, for example, I would create a deadline by which I needed to do something on one of my projects, and then I would berate myself for not having met it when it was made up in the first place. And I just started to see how ridiculous that was.
Yeah.
And it's helpful if it's helping you, but it's really not helpful if it's just going to be something else that you can feel negative about. So I guess when I get caught up about things, and I do, absolutely I do, I go off course, I get off track. When that happens, I kind of just see what's going on. It's my mind going crazy, and it really is just a case of settling down. And once my mind and thoughts settle, I'm back in my flow, and I'm okay again.
Yeah. So what about learning and improving yourself? Clearly, it's been a bit of a journey over the last few years, from what you've told us already. You've talked about podcasts. I think you said reading. I can't remember if that was just in my head or whether that was my last guest.
I did say that.
It's the trouble doing 2 podcasts in one day. So how do you learn and improve, and what sort of resources do you use for that?
So I, for years, have hired a coach. I actually don't have one right in this moment, but having coaches and mentors has always been really important to my growth and my learning. And you're absolutely right. I love to read. I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm watching videos. But I'm also always going on, to seminars and retreats with my mentors or courses. And there's like an annual conference I go to. Just to keep me kind of in the conversation of what I'm teaching. And I just always love learning from other people as well. So I'll talk to colleagues about, like, almost like a mastermind. We'll share ideas with each other and share like fresh thinking to help each other, and I really value that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lovely. So what about routines, habits, rituals? Now, I ask this question all the time because sustain is one of the 5 S's. I'm sort of thinking that some of what you've said already is about not about routines and rituals. It's about going with the flow sort of thing. But I don't know, rituals to me has a sort of improving yourself connotation, creating these lovely environments to make sure you do things that you want to do. And I guess you've already talked about things like going for walks and stuff. Would you say you have routines and rituals, or is that against what you're teaching now?
No, I would say that no, it's more that I find myself doing things. So in the morning, for example, I'm exercising invariably on my business days. I'm exercising first thing. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm doing something creative, like I'm reading or I'm writing, maybe doing some yoga. But I'm generally doing one of those things. But I'm not like fixed on any of this, but I am generally doing one of those things. And then I'm really just focusing on, okay, what are my most important tasks for the day? And as I say, I'm really trusting that I know what I can do. I know I'm doing the right thing by just drawing on that wisdom moment to moment. So I am taking action, or I'm doing whatever feels good all day. My lawyer days are slightly different. But one of the things I will say that's exactly the same is that I do really like the stillness of the morning. And I like it to be on my terms. So, for example, I don't engage in the news or emails or whatever first thing. I just don't engage in any of that until, okay, now I'm good to be open to the world.
Yeah. It sort of strikes me that the sort of attitude of that stillness and doing what feels right in the moment is almost a ritual in itself.
Yeah, actually it is. It absolutely is, because if ever I'm off-piste, it's because I'm not there. So when I see how much more powerful and how much more successful, if you like, I am from that space, from living in that way, I'm just able to see how much it doesn't make sense for me to do other things that used to make sense.
Yes. Yeah.
And how, when I get caught up in my mind, I just really know what's going on, and I'm okay. I'm a bit more compassionate with myself, and just allow it to settle as and when it does, for me to just get back on track.
Yes. Yeah. So let's develop that a bit more about those days where things don't go right. So, whatever doesn't happen in either of the two parts of, 3 parts, your 2 work bits and your personal life. What about those days where everything just seems to go wrong? What do you do? How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, when you say things going wrong, I might kind of question even that. So what I mean is, well, what have I made up about this that makes it feel like it's wrong? So say, for example, I might make up that I'm really unhappy about the fact that the client didn't come back to me by such and such a date, and she said she would. I might make up that that's wrong, that things didn't go well there. But actually that isn't necessarily the story. That's just the story I'm telling myself. And so what often happens is, of course, they get back in touch and there was never any issue at all. They were just busy or whatever. But what I'm trying to point to is that I often make up stories about what something means, and categorize it into the failure label, when actually that isn't true. So that's the first piece. Like, is it even something going wrong? And the second piece is, if it isn't feeling good, then I guess I'm also, just because I'm really mindful of the fact that I don't necessarily, by drawing on my intellect only, I'm not very powerful from that. So what I mean by that is I don't necessarily know why things happen the way they happen. You might, if you had spoken to me just after my illness, I would have said to you, Jo, everything's gone awfully wrong. Like, my life is over, frankly. And who'd have thought years later I would have actually considered it to be a blessing in disguise. So and have led me onto a path of that I'm just so grateful for, that I may never have gone on to had it not been for my illness. So I don't necessarily even think that I know the answers to things. I'm recognizing that there's a path that, and I'm here to play my part in this game of life. And I just don't necessarily get stressed out about, I mean, I do sometimes have my moments, but it's not long before I chill out and start to just feel a bit calmer about things.
Yeah. What about those days where you end the day knowing you've had the chance to live more? And I talk about being able to do more of what you want to do and less of what you feel you have to do or you should do. I'm assuming you have maybe more than the average person. But what do those days look like? What do you do?
So all of the things I was saying earlier about what I like to do really in my spare time, if I have time, then it left over after I've attended to my business and so on, then it's just so obvious to me what I need to do. And that's more often than not with my friends and family, doing any number of things. I love being spontaneous and saying, hey, let's get to the cinema, let's, go out for a walk, let's listen to some music, whatever. And actually I'm really, the simple things. I really enjoy simple things. As I say, going for a walk, I really enjoy that. And I just love being with my loved ones. So I notice how there is more simplicity now than there ever was for me. If you'd spoken to me even sort of 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been giving you very different answers to what I'm giving you now.
And interesting, I think that you haven't sort of listed a series of activities that you will have completed. You're at a sort of more macro level in terms of what that day looks like. It's interesting.
Yeah, and at the same time, I'm doing all of these things that I've always really enjoyed. So, for example, I'm going on a trekking holiday, that I've always really loved doing things like that. And as I say, I'm doing my exercise and I'm taking that to the next level now. And I'm doing all of these things, but it doesn't feel like a job on top of a job anymore. Whereas before it was like, I need to do that to be okay. Now it's like, oh, I'll just do that because it would be really cool to do that. And it's just telling me in the moment, this would be cool to do that. So I'm doing it. Yes. But as I say, I find that I'm actually doing everything that I would love to do anyway, but without any of the stress around it.
It does sound very freeing.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. I didn't used to be like this.
So it's been great having you on the show, and we sort of connected a bit because when you spoke at the event a few months ago, I sort of connected a bit because I got ill a while ago and then had some issues and stuff, and that's partly why my business changed and partly why I do focus on the 5 S's and do these interviews as well. So really interesting to hear your journey through that as well, and so heartening to hear how much everything changed from being so ill.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like been such a game changer for me that I'm really passionate about sharing it with other people and doing whatever I can to help other people alleviate any suffering that they may be experiencing.
Yeah. So how can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, so my website is the first place. That's www.beinglawyers.com, and there they can register sort of for free resources if they want. I'm also on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn. Those are the places to reach me. And yeah, I'm always kind of sharing things, so if it interests you, then please join me.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining me, Chetna.
Thank you so much.
All this information is available in the show notes on the website. If you go to powertolivemore.com/, in this case, 76, then you'll be able to find those there. I've got a bit out of sync on the old newsletters, having missed one or two recently. So I don't think I've talked to you about this tool. So the tool I shared in the last newsletter was Quiz IQ Test. And I've been on a constant mission, albeit at varying intensity levels, depending on circumstances, to become fluent in French, really ever since I left school. So that's a long time ago. And I've been using an app in the last couple of years to develop my vocabulary, which I always said was my weak point, that I'd want to say something and then get stuck because I couldn't think what the word was. And I'll talk to you about that another week. But I also get stuck on my grammar, and in particular things like conjugating verbs, which is really frustrating, especially for someone like me who talks as much as I do and likes to get stuff right as well. So this week I've been using a cool website to learn and practice the grammar stuff, including taking regular tests to check my understanding and progress. And it is really helping. And in fact, it's the stuff that is really hard to practice otherwise, I think. So I'd really recommend it. If you go to quickiqtest.com, that's with a K, Kwik, IQtest.com, then they have French and I think Spanish at the moment, and it's using an automated bot system. So it offers up lessons for you based on the results of tests that you take, and it sort of learns as you go along how you're doing. So I've been finding it really helpful. So if you're looking at learning French or Spanish, then maybe check it out. As I say, it's Quick IQ Test, KWIKIQTEST.com. And again, the show notes for this show are at powertolivemore.com/76, and we look forward to speaking to you next week.
Use your power to live more.